Lee, thank you so much for joining us today on the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, and it's been a lot of fun taking time over the last few days to read up on your history and your experience, and obviously a lot of the presentations and talks you've given, and I've had a chance to look at some of the books you've written. It's a great background, and I have a lot of appreciation for what you're doing, but for listeners that may not be as familiar as me right now, I figured maybe the best thing to do is as we get started, I just wanted to let you kind of share a little bit of a brief overview of your career path, which I know started with kind of a challenging childhood, and there was not a real plan there exactly. I mean, you didn't say, I want to work for Disney one day, but it evolved into being a cook in the military and some opportunities in the hospitality space, and then Disney, and then where you are today.
Yeah, sure. Well, I grew up in Oklahoma on a little farm, and I couldn't watch Disney because we didn't have a TV.
Right.
So we got a TV when I was in the fifth grade. I think I was about 11, 1954. I think we got a TV. And so I grew up there. It was we were very poor. It was a dairy farm, barely scraping along. My mother was married a total of 5 times. She was a busy lady, and I was adopted twice by 2 of her husbands, and so I got my name Cockerell when I was 16. So that was my third name. And he had money, so I got to go to college, and I went, but I forgot to go to class, so I didn't do too well there, and I went in the Army.
Okay.
And that was 1964. I went in the Army. I met a guy there, and when we eventually got out, he asked me if I wanted to go with him to Washington, D.C., because the Washington Hilton Hotel was going to open up on Connecticut Avenue. Okay. That's the hotel where President Reagan got shot.
Yeah.
Outside as he was coming out. And so I went there. I got a job as a banquet waiter, and I worked there for about 3 years. I met my wife there. She was in an office next door to mine eventually when I got out of being a waiter and got into a management training program. Did that, and then we moved to Chicago, had a baby, worked at the Hilton there, and then I got transferred to the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. We lived in New York for 3 years, and then went to Los Angeles, and from there I took another little job, didn't work out, and ended up with Marriott eventually, and stayed with them for 17 years, and focused on food and beverage. That was kind of my thing by then, and so I became the vice president of food and beverage for Marriott, and then I got recruited by Disney, and 1990 to open Euro Disney in France. And today it's called Disneyland Paris, of course. But went there. We lived in France for 3 years. I eventually became the head of operations there for the resorts in Paris. And then I got asked to come back to Orlando. I'd never worked in Orlando before. Actually, I'd never been to Disney before I went to work for them in Orlando. I'd never been to Disney World.
Wow.
I tell people, I didn't tell them that in the interview.
I started saying, did they ask you that question?
No, I'd been to Disneyland way before. They brought me back to Orlando as the senior vice president head of the hotel division. And,
wow.
A couple years later, I got promoted to be in charge of all operations at Disney, which I did for about 10 years. And then I retired when I was 62 and had a 10-year contract with Disney to do consulting and work for them, and wrote some books and started a speaking business, and and that all turned out okay.
Yeah, so, wow. I mean, that's quite the path.
That's why one of the things I tell people in my speeches, and I tell especially young people in high school, a lot of them don't know what they want to do. I said, hey, listen, it'll all work out if you have a good attitude and you're organized. Mm-hmm. And don't underestimate what you can do, because if I could do it, and I was terrible in school. I wrote 4 books, but I don't know where the commas go. So,
yeah.
But you can do it. And then I got it focused because I was doing something I loved. And so I was reading, going to seminars, learning more and more and more. When you finally figure something you like, you do it because you like it. And that's what I did. And I got better and better at it. And eventually, somebody noticed. But I think that one thing I tell you, have a good attitude, be positive, and get organized so you keep your promises and do what you say you're going to do, and you're reliable and credible. And those are the things people are looking for today. And frankly, today you probably don't even need a college degree if you go into some of the technical areas.
Right.
And you're still going to need to have that right attitude and follow through. And That's why I got into this. I wrote a book about time management, because if you're not organized, it doesn't much matter how much you know if you don't get it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
My wife and I have been married 50 years now, so I got the family average down.
There you go.
Mother's been married 5, so I thought, well, we can work this out. And my son's now been married 25 years, so I guess we broke the chain.
Wow, I'm sure there was so much to learn, there too. So,
There is, absolutely.
and your
Yeah.
son also works for Disney as well, doesn't he?
He did for 27 years, and he left last May and started his own business like I'm doing, and he's now traveling all over the world doing speaking and seminars and consulting, and he's selling his house and moving to Boulder, Colorado, so they can go skiing more often. So he's
Oh, well, that's a good reason to go to Boulder.
Good life. Yeah. But he was at Disney 27 years.
Wow. It's so great to see, the information you're able to share from, especially from the Disney experience. You talk about creating magic in different areas in your life and your career. And when I look at some of the things that you discuss about creating that in business, one of the things that crossed my mind that I'd like to ask you is, why do the values of Disney's kind of customer-driven, disciplined culture need to be shared with other leaders and organizations? Does Disney have a secret sauce, or is it basically that too many companies have lost sight of strategies and values that really should kind of be automatic, but they just aren't part of their culture?
Yeah, I would say that you hit it right on the head. It's not that Disney has a secret sauce. It's right in everybody's face. And I'll tell you, there's 3 things Disney does better than anybody else. Number one, we hire better. We are very careful who we bring into the organization. I tell everybody, that's the most important thing you ever do. I mean, there's nothing more important for every leader out there. I don't care if it's the CEO or the person down the line. Hire the right people. Take your time. Get the right people. Be clear with them about your expectations when you hire them, so they don't get into something they can't do. And that's the first thing. And then second thing is training. We train better. We train them continually. And last, we treat them better. I always tell them, I got the little formula is hire them right, train them right, and treat them right.
So, I like that.
If you do those 3, and every company out there ought to ask themselves, are we really doing that? Are we really hiring as well as we could or should? Are we really training people as well as do they really feel comfortable and know everything they need to know to do their job, so the clients are really impressed when they deal with our employees? And last, are they excited to wake up and come to work in the morning because they know they're in a place where they're respected and included and involved and listened to? At the end of the day, that's pretty much the formula in life. If you love me, I love you. And if you're committed to me, I'll be committed to you.
Well, yeah, especially that training element. I mean, I know people who have walked into really big companies and it's just instant chaos from day one. And part of it's because not only is there not any training, but there's not even any onboarding.
Well, yeah, exactly. That word onboarding, that is what most companies don't do right. They don't bring in. They don't be extremely clear with them about how it works around here, what we expect, how you have to behave, values, honesty, integrity, taking care of the guest. Absolutely. And it's like at home, like parents. So parents all worry about education, which is training for their children, and safety, and creating a culture at home where the child feels safe and grows up with good self-confidence and self-esteem. And it's the same thing everywhere in life. And if you treat people right and you train them and educate them, they get excited.
When I look at some of the responsibilities you had, especially first and foremost leading a team of 40,000 cast members, when you were in charge of the Walt Disney World Resort, I mean, what would I know it may be kind of hard to kind of break this down, but what's a typical week look like in that position?
Well, I'm into routine. So every day I kind of have a plan. It doesn't always go that way, but sure. I got up. I was in the office by 6:15, 6:30 in the morning before anybody else came in. And I took about an hour and a half to make sure I answered my email and planned my day, made sure I was ready to do what I was supposed to do and what meetings, instead of just running into the office 5 minutes before the first meeting, and like a lot of people do. Yeah. And then I pre-planned the whole month. I knew I was going to be in the Magic Kingdom on, August 12th for 4 hours. I blocked that out. And then I was going to be in the Animal Kingdom for this day and that day. And I planned where I would be so the year wouldn't get away from me and I hadn't been out and checking things all over the property. And I think that's not, this is why this time management works so well. I think somebody once told me, plan the priorities, schedule the priorities in your calendar. If your kids are important on Saturday morning, then block it out to go to their game or to go do something. And when you start using your calendar to drive you, you will start to do the things you should be doing.
Yeah, I had an uncle who had a sign in his garage that said, plan your work, work your plan.
Absolutely. He is right on. That simple thing. It's like when you go on vacation. Everybody knows how to plan it. Because if you don't, it'll be a disaster.
That's right.
But when they get to their life,
reasons.
Yeah, they let the rest of their life get out of control. They don't plan their health. They don't take care of their health, their relationships, their children, their own education, their aging parents and grandparents that they're not thinking about how they're going to deal with that. And you got to be kind of on it, because I tell people now, you only have 4 ages. You're born, you're 21, you're 65, and you're dead. So you better get with it.
It's that death and taxes thing.
Yeah, so I'm in the last quarter here. So I'm taking care of my health.
Well, in your books, you break down several different ways to embody the magic. Everything from hiring. We talked a little bit about that. Professionalism, career path, choice of words. Do you have a couple of stories that you can share that represent why these values are so effective, or maybe the moment where, you experienced something that kind of solidified your belief in those things?
Well, I think I got started right. I started with Hilton, and they were very strict about perfect service, how you came to work. You had to look professional. If there was a formal event in the hotel, in the ballrooms that night, you had to come in. Even if you were a manager, you had to have a tuxedo on. I mean, you looked like you belonged in there.
Yeah.
You were taught never drink out of a bottle. That's why they have glasses. Don't ever, if you smoke, never walk around smoking. And all these things I learned early on by some real pros that were tough. And in fact, if you're going to be professional, then you need to act like it. And you need to understand what it is.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I had a lot of good experience. I tell everybody today, 3 things you need to be successful are education, experience, and exposure. Exposure to other ways of doing things, exposure to other people, other races, all countries. And when you get those 3, you're really you know what you're doing by then. And a lot of people get a good education today, and then they don't get the right experience, or they don't get exposure. They stay in their little village, But I learned that along the way. I had some tough bosses that really, when I started at the Waldorf, my boss called me in and he told me, Lee, anytime you have a tuxedo on, we're going to buy you one. And you never wear a brown suit and brown shoes after 5 o'clock in New York. And you I mean, he went through. He bought me a pair of cufflinks. I didn't even know what cufflinks were. Yeah, I think it's always, it's about learning. So if you get in the right experience, you learn. If you hang around people that work in T-shirts in hotels, you probably don't know the difference.
Yeah.
And so that was good. And then Marriott, too, was extremely professional. You had to have your act together when you came in, have your name tag on, and look right. Your coat and tie on, and you need to be there to take care of the guests. So I kept learning those things. And then when you're in the hotel business, of course, you get huge exposure.
Yeah.
You go to the right restaurants, you go to these fancy banquets where everybody in the room's got millions of dollars, and you get to see this stuff, know what it looks like and how it feels. And so you're not intimidated when you come into contact with it. So I think that's why I always tell people, get exposure. Go somewhere every year that you've never been before. Go have lunch with somebody that you probably think you don't like. And, next thing,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've had to do that a couple times.
To Mexico. They're not going to kill you down there.
That's right.
I spent 3 weeks. So I went to England recently and to London for a speech. And some people said, "Oh, be careful. You're going to get stabbed on the street." I said, "What? I'm more worried about getting stabbed in Orlando than I am in London." The news gets everything out of kilter where we start not trusting anything.
Yeah, I mean, you could drive yourself crazy after a while.
Exactly. So, yeah, those experiences matter. Yeah, really, and one thing I think, if you focus on anything long enough, you'll become an expert in it. You really want to be the best food guy out there, or the best retail, or the best, then you got to visit the best places.
Yeah.
You got to try to work in the best places. You got to go to seminars where the best people are there, and hook yourself to people who are really great, so they'll teach you and mentor you. And next thing you know, you wake up one morning and you know more than you ever thought you would.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, one of the things that's going to help that along, you're talking about being able to learn from people. I know that one of the things that you talk a lot about is leadership. This is talking about, that magic at the top. And when I listen to you talk about remembering that everyone is important, that everyone has value, your employees are people with lives and stories and challenges they're going through, and how important it is to know those things about them, I can't help but think about the show Undercover Boss. And it's interesting to me because each show generally, I've only watched a few episodes. I don't watch it religiously, but I've seen a few. Each show generally involves a CEO going undercover and learning all kinds of things about their employees that they didn't know before then. Everything from their names to how they feel about their job, what it feels like to work there. And I realize it makes good TV every time they do this. But as someone who talks about leadership as much as you do, it has to also be a little disheartening just how many episodes they can make of something like that.
I would say that is usually the problem in most big companies today, and sometimes small companies, depending on the ego and people thinking they're hot stuff and they don't pay attention to the employees and they're in it just for the money and they don't know how to build the business over the long term. But this is pretty common that I would say that number one thing you ask people today is whether it's Disney or anybody, people don't leave. They leave their leader. They leave the person who is a jerk, frankly.
Yeah, right.
They don't leave Disney. They don't leave American Express. They don't leave Costco. They leave, if they ended up with a boss that's an idiot, they leave that.
That's right.
And that's just simple. That's simple. Half the people don't even know who the senior vice presidents and the vice presidents and the board of directors and the CEO are. Their boss,
I think that's a great point that, they're not leaving the organization. They're leaving, maybe, the environment that's been created by somebody or someone like you said that they're working for. I think about, here I am quoting all kinds of TV shows. I apologize for that. But I also watched The Prophet. And,
me too. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. We religiously watch that. And I remember there was a business that Marcus went to. And one day he showed up and two of the three people that he met like the day before were gone. And they're like, where are they? And like, well, they quit. And the guy who was running the company was just like, no big deal. And then Marcus had to sit him down and go, you realize that when somebody does this, they are firing you as a manager.
Exactly. I would, I mean, just, and it's the right thing to do. I mean, come on. Why would who has the right to go intimidate people and make them feel bad? And I mean, if you're going to be a leader, you have responsibility for developing those people and teaching them the right way and having difficult conversations with them. And making difficult decisions, just like your mother did. Mothers don't care if you're happy; they kick your butt.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they want you to be successful.
That's
so
right.
they still tell you they love you before you go to sleep. And that's what we got to just remember. It's people. People have emotions. People have a heart. Nobody wants to be pushed around. I think that is one of the bigger problems today is people are not respectful enough to each other.
The fundamental principle that, if we're just going by the averages, I mean, you're talking about something that a lot of people have to get up and do for 40 or more hours a week for, life or a long span of life. So there needs to be some value in that coming from the people they're surrounded by, and they have to love what they're doing.
And they say 80% of people hate their job.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably not their job they hate so much as the environment they're working in and the way they're treated, and they're not learning new things, and they don't have an opportunity to get promoted, and they don't see a future. When you lose hope and you're stuck in this place, nobody's paying attention to you and teaching you new things so you can get that next job and salary increase. This is what happens. Then people hate their job.
Yeah.
And then they get stuck because they get married, they have a mortgage, they have a couple of kids, they can't move. And a lot of people get stuck in life. You got to be careful about that.
Well, obviously some things have changed over the years since you were applying for some of those early jobs. And in those earliest of days, you hadn't finished college and you didn't have a plan, as you've told people. But you had someone ask you, I think at Disney at one point in time, what your goal was. And you said, I don't have one right now.
I've always just tried to do a great job. And then it seems like when you do really great, you get promoted. That's what I figured out finally.
Well, and yeah,
And
you got
I
those.
was very insecure too because I didn't have a college degree, so I was Mr. Insecurity,
No, it makes
always.
sense. Fortunately, though, you did get opportunities, and you, like you said, you worked hard, and look where you are today. I've read several thought leader pieces in recent weeks on how companies can hinder their hiring processes by trying to focus too much on what's on paper or
Absolutely.
overload their responsibility section of a job posting, or really anymore, something I've seen a lot is even work on some sort of algorithm or some sort of thing that they've got in their head. It signifies a sure thing. And, if people had done that to you, that obviously they would have, if they just said, oh, well, he doesn't have a college degree, or he doesn't seem to want to do any, he doesn't have a plan. We don't, need to go that route. I mean, look what they would have missed out on with all the success you brought to those organizations. And it just seems like that's another thing that people could be doing in the hiring process, is really starting to focus more on, I guess it would be kind of intangibles outside of just what's on paper or what they think they figured out through to some sort of formula they came up with.
Well, I'm helping young people now with that because they'll send me a resume, and every resume you get today, it looks exactly like somebody else's. They graduated, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And change your cover letter. Your resume is okay. Change your cover letter and tell me in that letter who you are, why I should hire you, even if I don't look at your resume. Tell me about the things you've been through. Tell me about your initiative. Tell me obstacles you've overcome in your life and jobs you've had, and convince me in a letter. Write the best letter you've ever written in your life, and then I'll look at the resume later because I want to know who you are, not what you've done.
Yeah.
And because that people who have that passion and they've done the hard things, been through the hard mill, they're high potential people with passion and attitude. They're high potential. All they need is a little training. And I think most companies are missing the boat. This whole interviewing online and all this crap. I mean, you're missing great people. You're not getting down to who they are. That's why I like veterans. They've been through hell. They've gone through it. They made it happen, and they work hard, and they're committed, and they're on time, and they'll go all the way. They'll do the job.
Yep.
I don't care if they have a college degree, frankly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't one today. If you're going into IT or a lot of technical jobs, you don't need it. You just need to be an expert.
Yeah, and there's such demand for it too, and that definitely helps.
Unbelievable. Yeah, you can't get them. I mean, it's so tough. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. I want to know who you are.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've always kind of remembered, and I've never had, an approach taken like this for me in a job interview, but one of the people that my wife worked for for many years. And he kind of pointed out that this is important to him in the interview process, and kind of said, if you have to interview some people, this is kind of important. And that was basically asking the question, do you want the job?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good point. And by the way, what you know doesn't even matter when you get out of college because it's changing so fast now. I want to know if I got a guy that's going to keep learning and going back and driving and waking up every morning trying to figure out the new way. Because really, think about it. By the time you get out of college, about half of it's already changed.
Well, yeah. I'm especially in an area where I've worked a lot, and that's marketing and content marketing.
Yeah, whoever thought of Facebook and all these places for ads and commercials and TV under heavy pressure and.
Well, and what's interesting is, one of the things that's definitely, it's definitely one of those things that's changed dramatically just in the last, few years. It's really just changed mainly not only but marketing, but also communication is all pretty much consumer driven now, where, the marketers used to be in control as to how they were going to reach you and where they were going to reach you and what they were going to say. And now people are having to take kind of a less salesy, more interpersonal, meaningful approach to connect with people. And, when you look at Disney and the use of words to create magic, it's like, once again, Disney's been doing this has been taking this approach for years. I mean, everything ranging from not only how they market things, but the fact that they don't call their employees, they call them cast members. There's, and I know you talk a lot about how those type of words mean things in the big picture.
A lady told me once, she said, Lee, words matter. She said, how many people wake up in the morning are happy that they're subordinates?
Right.
Or the guy says, my people. Your people, they're not your people.
Yeah.
I mean, and so we get, words do matter. And we know sometimes using the wrong word can really offend somebody, even today more than ever. You got to be more careful about saying inappropriate things, and and we used to just laugh it off because that's the way. But no more. I mean, we do offend people, and you got to pay attention to being right and keeping up with what's the right thing to do, and not make people feel uncomfortable. And nobody wants to do that, Hey, when I was at Disney first, one of the senior executives was still calling. He'd go in the office and say, "Hey, girls, how y'all doing?" Man, they were so annoyed they were about to have a fit. Well, he was an older guy, and he hadn't come around yet. So.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, isn't that something that probably is a bigger challenge more than ever, because the workplace now has gotten probably more multi-generational than it's ever been. And you got
absolutely.
People's mindset about jokes and about references from one generation completely different from the next, and they're all in the same space together.
Well, and you go to Disney, every religion works there, every culture. You name it. And if you don't get on the right track in your own brain to treat everybody respectfully, you're going to get in trouble because you're going to say something wrong, tell an inappropriate joke, offend someone. And look at the paper every day. All the guys getting in trouble in America.
Yeah, right.
Stupidity. And as my wife says, it's usually men.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful what you say and do. If you're going to be, and you do that in front of your kids, you got to be careful what you say and do in front of your children, because you're programming their little brains, and you got to just pay attention. It's a responsibility of leadership at home or at work.
I heard someone say one time, kids are only going to learn from other people. They're not, of course, now you got to be careful that they're, not learning too many things from tablets and things, but for all intents and purposes, the core of their learning is really coming from other people and not from something else. I
said all little babies are so pure when they pop out. They're perfect until we screw them up. Right. Be careful who you screw up. Like a new employee, a new person just comes to the company and you talk about everything's great and we're good leaders and all, and then you do inappropriate things, you lose trust. When you lose trust, it's all over.
Yeah, then it's miserable trying to fix it all, because it's almost next to impossible to fix it after you've reached kind of a point of no return.
Yeah, it's like a dog that bites you. You're never going to trust that dog again. I tell people, I don't care how many times you took him to obedience school. I'm not petting him.
That's right. Yeah. Fool me once and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
What's it like to look now at just where Disney is now and just the explosion of entertainment, especially, as I would call it, geek culture, and you look at just how big the whole theme park experience is getting more and more every year. I mean, I think that I read just recently that Disney's going to spend more in the next couple of years on park expansions than they ever have with Star Wars Land and other things.
Well, it's mind-boggling. I mean, it's getting so big so fast.
Yeah.
When I came to Disney, Animal Kingdom had not opened. Many of the hotels had not opened. I mean, now there's a crane on every corner over there. I mean, it's billions they're spending.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like when I was at Marriott. When I joined Marriott, they had 36 hotels. Can you imagine Marriott with 36 hotels?
No.
They had 6,500.
I start saying maybe in one region of a state, 36.
City, maybe.
Yeah, in a city.
And so the world has taken off, and travel. I think travel has really helped. People can travel all over the world today and do. I mean, the number of airplanes up every day bringing people here and there and there's vacations, hotel stays, theme parks, entertainment, restaurants. That's going to continue to be a good business to be in because people are looking for a break.
As I was kind of looking over and like I said, reading up on so many of the things that you've done and listening to so many of the speeches you've given, sometimes some of the things that I was watching, you'd only written like one of your books, and now you've written more than one. And I'm hoping that as people are listening, depending on where they are in their life, that, it just seems like you've had the opportunity now to almost have something for everybody, or at least anybody that's in a certain stage of their life or their professional career.
Well, I wrote the first one, Creating Magic, it's 10 leadership strategies that I really learned in my life, and a lot of them at Disney. That book is in 18 languages now. It's being used in many universities, high schools, colleges. We've got a teacher's guide for it if anybody wants it, that they can use to teach the course, which a lot of students are quite interested in, and professors are using it. And then I wrote the Customer Rules, which is on customer service, 39 rules, and it's basically things you can do in your business that won't cost you anything. It's just approaches to the business, how you think about the guest and the customer and your employees. And that's in about 15 languages now, and people are using it all over.
Wow.
It's a guide for their training, for onboarding, frankly.
Yeah.
And third one I did is time management, how to get yourself organized and disciplined so you have a good reputation. You do what you say you're going to do. You follow through. You're reliable. You're credible. And frankly, that's going to be good for your personal and business life. How to keep your whole life together. If you're having trouble at work, you're going to have trouble at home. If you have trouble at home, you're going to have trouble at work. If you don't take care of your health, you're not going to be a good leader at work. You're going to be tired. You're not going to have the energy. You're going to get sick. If you don't take care of your finances, you can't help other people. It's all these things come together. And that's what I tried to put in that time management magic book. And the last one I wrote was called Career Magic, How to Stay on Track. And that is how to handle obstacles. And that's what I wrote it about, how to handle the obstacles that you're going to meet in your career and in your personal life. A lot of young people, I think they don't think they're going to have them. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you went to Harvard or you didn't go to school. You're going to run into many obstacles.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's going to be your fault. Sometimes it's not going to be your fault. Sometimes it's going to be unfair. Sometimes you're going to be in the wrong marriage, the wrong job, the wrong city. You don't like it, but you got to just get on with it. You got to not give up and get depressed and expect that they're going to happen. I don't care how great you are, they're going to happen.
Yeah.
That's just life. That's what happens. So that book is really for people who are, hopefully it'll inspire them to not give up too easily. Just go on. Your best days are ahead. I mean, I was fired in a job. I was passed over. And after all of that, my career soared for the last 20 years of my career. I'd been through hell. I was at home. I had to really work on my marriage because I was working all the time and not paying attention. And, it's all these things that happen to everybody. Life comes at you pretty hard.
Well, I just want people to know that, all 4 of those books are on your website at leecockerell.com, and there's links to Amazon and Barnes & Noble to get that. But the other thing that I really want to point out, obviously, if you're listening to this, you're familiar with listening to podcasts, and if you have enjoyed and have really gotten a lot out of what Lee's had to say today, well, guess what? He's got his own podcast on that site too, where he's sharing a lot of insights like you've heard today, and that's also a really good resource now because you talk about the way media has changed. It's so great that we can have resources on demand to provide us with good information, and that's something that you're definitely doing on your show as well.
Well, podcasts are more powerful than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
Because people can listen to them on their phone when they're driving, when they're mowing the lawn, anytime, audio ones. And that's why we didn't do video. And I guess that's why you don't, because you're going to get a lot more attention. We have about 220 episodes now, and they're about leadership, management, customer service, health, family. We cover all kinds of, and we have listener questions called in. So somebody will call and ask us how to deal with an employee, and we try to help them think through how to deal with that. And so it's been fun to do. And I didn't even know what a podcast was 5 years ago. So that's how things change.
Yeah. Sorry, my dog's barking.
Always should have a dog barking and some kids running around when you're working.
Since we're on the theme of Disney, my dog's name is Kenobi, so.
Oh, right.
We pointed out the books. We know that you've got plenty of speaking engagements that you do not only hear. You mentioned the military. I know that you do a lot for the military, too, helping them get reacclimated back into society after service, which I think is awesome. And I know you do that, if I'm not mistaken, for free as well, because you know the value there and that it means a lot to you. And it means a lot to me that you do that. So,
I speak to a lot of bases all over. I even went to Baghdad during the war and did 13 seminars, which was incredible.
Awesome.
Incredible trip, but they're incredible people. I mean, I think I've been to every base in the country. I'm going out to Seattle to a Navy base in March, and I even went back to my old base, Fort Polk, Louisiana, where I went to basic training. And then I spoke to the officers. See, I was just a private back then.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun.
Well, do you have anything else that you're working on or that you're doing in the coming weeks or months that you want people to know about?
We're starting to do more public seminars because people say they want to come to them. And a lot of my seminars and speeches and presentations have been to private companies, which they don't usually allow people just to come in. So we've been put in a few. We had one in London. We had one in Indianapolis. We have, I have a few of those we're putting together in different cities and trying to come up with those. I put them on my website when we're doing them for those people who want to show up. And the podcasts keep us busy and working more with education and healthcare because there's a lot of opportunity there for improving patient service and student education of getting kids more reality instead of so much theory. They're kind of tired of theory. So it's fun.
Lee, thank you so much for your time today and for the great insight and all the good work you're doing. And thank you so much for being a guest on the program. It's been a great discussion.
Thank you so much. You take care and have a good New Year.